Picture this: every choice I've ever made, every decision I've felt utterly certain about, what if none of them were truly mine? What if every single action, every thought I've had, could be swayed by powers beyond my command? And no, I'm not venturing into some outlandish conspiracy theory. This is a reality affirmed by some of the most brilliant intellects in science, philosophy, and mysticism. Indeed, the science of free will increasingly suggests we might be little more than biological robots. My mind, I've come to realize, isn't as independent as I once thought. To truly grasp this notion, I need to take you back to the very start, to the neuroscience that has been unsettling both scientists and philosophers alike. What if my brain has already determined my next move long before I even perceive that I've made a choice? You're not mishearing this. A groundbreaking experiment conducted in 1983 by neuroscientist Benjamin Libet unveiled something truly astonishing. Before I even consciously feel like I'm making a decision, my brain has already initiated the process. Libet found that brain activity commences a full 300 milliseconds before I even consciously choose to move. Let that profound implication settle in. My brain is consistently operating ahead of my conscious self. So, does this imply I possess no control whatsoever? The theory of determinism contends that every single event, human actions included, is predetermined by preceding causes, all governed by natural laws, significantly influenced by Newtonian physics. Determinism posits that the universe functions like an intricate chain of cause and effect, where everything, including human decisions, is inescapable. Philosophers such as Baruch Spinoza and Pierre-Simon Laplace were convinced that human actions are dictated by earlier occurrences, thus rendering free will an illusion. Yet, in stark contrast, libertarianism champions genuine freedom, asserting that individuals can indeed make choices entirely independent of prior causes. This perspective suggests that I, as an individual, possess the capacity to act based on self-determined actions, a concept known as agent causation. Jean-Paul Sartre, a prominent advocate, famously argued that humans are condemned to be free and must bear full responsibility for their choices. Offering a pragmatic middle ground, compatibilism seeks to reconcile determinism and libertarianism. It maintains that free will can exist even within a deterministic universe, provided that my actions align with my desires and reasoning, free from external compulsion. David Hume, a proponent of this view, held that freedom is simply acting according to one's will without external force, allowing for both human responsibility and scientific causality. Enlightenment thinkers also profoundly shaped the free will discussion. Immanuel Kant, for instance, stressed that true freedom originates from acting in accordance with moral laws, which are chosen by reason, thereby enabling moral responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre, in contrast, championed existential freedom, where I, as an individual, craft meaning and values through my choices, consciously rejecting external moral statutes. Fatalism and skepticism, however, present strong challenges to the very existence of free will. Fatalism, closely tied to determinism, posits that the future is entirely predetermined and lies beyond any human influence. Arthur Schopenhauer contended that my behavior is largely propelled by unconscious desires, while neuroscientists like Benjamin Libet suggested that brain activity precedes conscious decision-making, thereby casting doubt on the authenticity of free will. Psychology offers a distinct lens through which to examine the free will debate, primarily by concentrating on how human behavior is swayed by mental processes, conditioning, and unconscious forces. Rather than dissecting free will from a purely philosophical angle, psychology investigates whether I truly control my actions, or if these actions are instead molded by factors I might be oblivious to. This behavioral approach, pioneered by B.F. Skinner and John Watson, proposes that behavior is predominantly formed by environmental conditioning. Classical conditioning, exemplified by Pavlov's experiment with dogs, and operant conditioning, where reinforcement and punishment guide behavior, both imply that my choices are influenced by past experiences and external rewards or punishments, thereby directly challenging the idea of free will. Instead, behavior is viewed as automatic, a product of previous conditioning. Furthermore, cognitive theories assert that much of my decision-making occurs largely below my conscious awareness. Researchers such as Daniel Kahneman have demonstrated that many decisions I make are automatic and rely on mental shortcuts or heuristics. Neuroscientific studies, again by Benjamin Libet, unveiled that brain activity precedes my conscious awareness of decisions, leading to the unsettling suggestion that free will might be an illusion, with choices already made before I even perceive them. Indeed, Sigmund Freud's theory of the unconscious posits that a significant portion of my behavior is driven by hidden desires and repressed memories, molding my actions without any conscious knowledge. More recent neurological research indicates that genetic and brain processes also significantly influence my behavior. Neuroplasticity, the brain's remarkable capacity to change with experience, underscores how biological factors can constrain free will, as my behavior can often be propelled by underlying biological mechanisms. Moreover, Barry Schwartz's concept of the paradox of choice argues that being presented with an overwhelming number of options can actually paralyze me, leading to anxiety, indecision, and ultimate dissatisfaction. While I might feel at liberty to choose, a plethora of choices can paradoxically reduce my contentment and usher in greater stress, thereby challenging the notion that increased freedom inevitably equates to greater happiness. Social psychology demonstrates that my behavior is profoundly influenced by social pressures and group dynamics. Factors such as peer pressure, cultural norms, and media portrayals actively mold my decisions, frequently curtailing my sense of autonomy. For instance, I might adopt certain behaviors not out of genuine free will, but rather due to prevailing social expectations. Shifting perspectives, Eastern spiritual traditions, especially Hinduism, Buddhism, and Taoism, strongly assert that the very notion of personal free will is, in the end, an illusion. These ancient wisdom traditions suggest that the individual self or ego is merely an illusory construct, and authentic freedom is found in recognizing my connection to a vast universal consciousness. In Hinduism, my free will is intricately linked to dharma, my righteous path or duty, and karma, the universal law of cause and effect. Unlike every individual, possess a divine purpose, a dharma to fulfill, which is an integral part of a grander cosmic order. While I have the liberty to choose actions, those choices are undeniably influenced by past deeds, both in this life and previous existences. The law of karma implies that my free will is constrained by these accumulated past actions. Ultimately, Hinduism puts forth liberation, or moksha, as the supreme form of freedom. This state is attained when I realize my true self, Atman, is inseparable from the divine Brahman. This profound realization dissolves the ego and the illusion of individual choice. In moksha, there is no longer a need for free will, because my individual being is in perfect harmony with the divine will. Buddhism similarly connects free will to liberation. The Buddha expounded that attachment to the self, or ego, is the fundamental cause of suffering. Clinging to the notion of free will ensnares me in the endless cycle of suffering, known as samsara. Buddhism instructs that the path to enlightenment, nirvana, entails releasing the illusion of self and detachment from desires. By consistently practicing mindfulness and meditation, I as an individual can transcend my ego and recognize the profound interconnectedness of all existence. In this elevated state, the sense of individual free will dissipates, and my actions align naturally with the greater good. True freedom in Buddhism arises not from making choices in the conventional sense, but from liberation from attachment and delusion. Actions guided by wisdom and compassion then supersede the illusion of personal choice. Taoism perceives free will as both an illusion and, paradoxically, a path to liberation. Central to Taoist philosophy is the Tao, or the Way, which embodies the natural, spontaneous flow of the universe. Taoism teaches that the ultimate freedom emerges from aligning with the Tao, rather than attempting to impose my personal will upon the world. The Taoist practice of Wu Wei, non-action or effortless action, encourages me to act in harmony with the natural order, devoid of ego or desire. By acting spontaneously, I experience freedom through being perfectly in tune with the flow of life. In Taoism, Authentic freedom stems from relinquishing control and embracing the world's spontaneous, effortless character. Moving to mystical traditions, including Sufism, Christian mysticism, and Kabbalah, the concept of divine will is paramount to comprehending free will. My individual free will is often regarded as both a divine gift and a profound responsibility that must harmonize with a higher divine purpose. In Sufism, the concept of free will is interwoven with tawhid, the oneness of God, and ishq, divine love. Sufis hold that every single entity in the universe is a manifestation of God, and my individual soul is intrinsically linked to the divine. True freedom, in this context, is discovered through surrendering to God's will. The Sufi path involves transcending the ego and fostering profound love and devotion toward God. This surrender to divine will is not perceived as a forfeiture of freedom, but rather as a profounder liberation, releasing me from the ego and the erroneous sensation of separateness. In Christian mysticism, free will is frequently associated with divine grace. While traditional Christianity stresses my capacity to choose between good and evil, mystics like Meister Eckhart and John of the Cross contend that genuine freedom lies in absolute surrender to God's will. For Christian mystics, the pinnacle of freedom is the ability to choose God's will above all else. Surrendering to divine grace transcends the ego, ushering me into profound union with God. Free will, in this context, is simultaneously a gift and a challenge, and true fulfillment emerges when I align my personal will with a divine plan. In many mystical traditions, the very concept of free will dissipates entirely when I achieve spiritual enlightenment or liberation. As the individual ego recedes in the radiance of divine consciousness, the need for personal will vanishes, and I become one with the greater universal will. Whether through unity with the divine in Hinduism, the cessation of attachment in Buddhism, alignment with the Tao in Taoism, or union with God in Sufism and Christian mysticism, mystical liberation consistently signifies the relinquishment of individual choice and control. In this state of profound unity, my soul is in perfect harmony with the divine order, liberated from the illusion of free will. Turning back to science, neuroscience has indeed made significant strides in comprehending the brain's pivotal role in decision-making. A core inquiry revolves around whether free will originates from conscious thought or if decisions are instead made by the brain before I'm even aware of them. A pivotal experiment by neuroscientist Benjamin Libet in the 1980s specifically challenged the notion of free will. His findings demonstrated that brain activity linked to a decision occurred several hundred milliseconds before participants consciously registered their intention to act. This raised the intriguing possibility that my brain makes decisions well before I become consciously aware of them, implying that my sense of free will might simply be a post hoc rationalization of choices already orchestrated by my brain. Although this remains a debated topic, with some arguing that the conscious mind retains the ability to veto decisions, Libet's experiment certainly suggests that much of what I perceive as free will may be heavily influenced or even determined by unconscious neural processes. Functional magnetic resonance imaging (fMRI) has further convoluted the free will debate. Studies reveal that fMRI scans can predict a person's decision several seconds before they are even consciously aware of it. This strongly indicates that my brain makes decisions long before they surface into conscious awareness. In one particular study, researchers were able to predict whether participants would choose to press a button with their left or right hand solely based on their brain activity. This implies that my conscious awareness might not be the genesis of decisions, but rather a byproduct of earlier, non-conscious brain processes. Many neuroscientists now posit that free will may not be an independent force at all, but instead an illusion. My brain constantly processes immense volumes of sensory input, emotional responses, and past experiences, all of which shape my behavior, often without my conscious knowledge. My personal sense of autonomy, I've learned, originates from the intricate interplay of various brain regions. The prefrontal cortex, deeply involved in decision-making, plays a central role, but it operates in conjunction with the limbic system, which governs emotions and motivations, and the basal ganglia, responsible for habit formation. even when I genuinely believe I am exercising free will, unconscious neural activity, past experiences, and environmental factors profoundly sway my decisions. Furthermore, genetics also plays a substantial role in shaping my behavior. Genetic determinism suggests that my genetic makeup largely dictates my thoughts, behaviors, and decisions. Research has consistently demonstrated that genetic variations influence traits like impulsivity and susceptibility to addiction, which, in turn, directly affect my choices. If my genetic predispositions are so potent in their influence, can I truly claim genuine freedom in my decision-making? The field of epigenetics, the study of how environmental factors impact gene expression, further complicates this picture. If my environment can literally alter my gene expression and behavior, then the concept of free will becomes progressively harder to reconcile with any true sense of autonomy. The precise role of consciousness in decision-making is absolutely central to the free will debate. Some neuroscientists, such as Michael Gazzaniga, propose that consciousness acts as a narrative generator, interpreting and rationalizing decisions already made by unconscious processes. From this viewpoint, my conscious mind isn't the origin of decisions, but rather becomes cognizant of them after the fact. This perspective implies that free will isn't an illusion of complete agency, but instead an illusion of autonomy. My conscious mind convinces me that I am in control, yet many decisions are profoundly shaped by unconscious processes. Interestingly, some scientists turn to quantum mechanics to seek a possible space for free will within the framework of modern science. Quantum theory posits that particles behave probabilistically, introducing an element of randomness at the subatomic level. This inherent unpredictability might just offer room for free will, suggesting that my decisions could involve some degree of non-determinism. While quantum mechanics certainly doesn't provide a straightforward answer to the free will question, it does suggest that there might be an underlying element of randomness in how decisions are formed. However, the direct connection between quantum mechanics and human consciousness remains speculative, and it's improbable that it will fully resolve the profound question of autonomy and decision-making. So, what does all of this ultimately signify for me? Am I genuinely in control, or is this entire life merely an elaborate dream? If all of this holds true, if free will is indeed just an illusion, I urge you to share in the comments. What would that profound realization mean for your life?